The war had ended, but the wounds it left behind still burned deep across Westeros. The Iron Throne had melted, and no one sat above the rest. In this fragile peace, a new idea started to rise. What if instead of lords ruling by blood in birth, a single true protector led the realm, chosen not by name, but by strength, honor, and wisdom? From the ashes of war, a new king's guard was to be formed, not just any group of knights, but one elite protector. And 3 of Westeros' most unlikely allies, Jon Snow, Jaime Lannister, and Brienne of Tarth, were asked to train this one protector. The idea came from Tyrion Lannister, now serving as the hand of the king in name only, trying to fix what he once helped break. He believed that if anyone could reshape the meaning of power, it would be those who had suffered under it. He sent ravens to the north, to Castle Black, where Jon Snow lived in quiet exile. Another went to Jaime and Brienne, who had settled near River Run, training young fighters and avoiding politics. Jon was hesitant. He had killed a queen, watched friends die, and lost the love of his life. He didn't want to lead, not again, but something about the idea pulled at him. A chance to build something, not destroy. Jaime and Brienne, too, felt the weight of their past decisions. Jaime, once called the Kingslayer, had abandoned both love and honor. Brienne had given her heart to a cause and a man who didn't know what to do with it. But here was something new, something better. The 3 of them met in the ruins of Dragonstone, chosen for its silence and strength. The castle stood over the sea, Blackstone kissed by fire. It was the perfect place to rebuild. The chosen recruit arrived 3 days later. His name was Cedric Storm, a bastard boy from the Stormlands. He was tall, fast, and had a temper sharp as his sword. But he was untrained, wild, and full of pride. A fighter, not a knight. Tyrion had chosen him on purpose raw talent, but no ties to old houses. A blank page. Training began before dawn. Jon taught him the way of the Night's Watch, discipline, endurance, and the meaning of brotherhood. He spoke little, but his eyes watched every move Cedric made. Jaime handled swordplay, teaching him how to win with style and control, not rage. His one hand, golden and stiff, reminded Cedric that victory wasn't always pretty. Brienne focused on honor, how to fight for those who cannot, how to never kneel to corruption, and how to carry a sword with grace, not ego. But Cedric didn't take well to rules. He questioned Jon's cold silence, mocked Jaime's past, and challenged Brienne in every lesson. He believed strength came from winning, not waiting. Jon warned him once, and twice, but Cedric laughed it off. On the 7th night, after a hard lesson in the rain, Cedric snapped. "Why should I listen to you?" He shouted at Jon. "You're just a traitor who murdered his queen." The silence was deep. Jon stepped forward, his face like ice. "Because I know what it costs to lose yourself." Cedric didn't answer, but the next morning he trained harder than ever before. Days turned into weeks. The castle grew louder with the sound of steel, and slower with the weight of tired bones. Jaime opened up, telling stories of the Mad King and how he once thought honor was something to lie about. Brienne told Cedric how she had been mocked her whole life for wanting to be a knight. Jon didn't speak much, but every time Cedric fell, Jon helped him stand. Something began to change. But peace never stays long in Westeros. Whispers came from the east of a group of old Targaryen loyalists gathering strength, hoping to restore the throne. They believed Jon Snow was their true king, and if he would not lead them, they'd take him by force. One night, a raven came with a message burned at the edges. "The dragon's blood still burns. Bend or bleed." Cedric read it, then turned to Jon. "Looks like your past isn't finished with you." Jon looked at the sea and said quietly, "Then we finish it together." The storm came 2 days later. Not wind, not rain, but fire and men. Just before dawn, Dragonstone's outer watchtower spotted sails on the horizon. black flags marked with the red dragon symbols of a new Targaryen rebellion. At first, Cedric stood on the cliffs and laughed. Let them come. I'll cut through them myself. But Jon wasn't smiling. He stood still, cloaked in the cold wind, his eyes fixed on the ships. They're not here for a fight, he said. They're here for a claim. The rebels believed Jon to be the true heir, the last dragon, the king who should have been crowned. They saw Daenerys as the tyrant and believed Jon had saved the realm by killing her. In their eyes, he was a hero in exile, one they wanted to raise, even if it meant war. A messenger landed first, escorted by guards in armor dark as obsidian. He handed Jon a scroll, sealed in wax, shaped like dragon wings. The message was clear. Come with us, take your place, or fall with those who stand in your way. Jon burned the scroll without a word. Jaime chuckled, leaning against a wall. They don't know you very well, do they? Cedric frowned. You're just going to say no? You could be king. Jon turned, his voice low. I've seen what the crown does. It burns everything it touches. But the rebels didn't care about his refusal. That night, they attacked. They moved like shadows through the fog fast, precise and brutal. Their goal wasn't to kill Jon, but to drag him back to their so-called Court of Fire. They sent elite warriors, trained in the east, blades dipped in poison, moving through the lower halls of Dragonstone like vipers. But they didn't count on Cedric. He was the first to spot one slipping into the courtyard. Sword drawn, Cedric didn't hesitate. Steel clashed in the moonlight, and he killed his first man with a quick, ugly stab to the throat. Jaime and Brienne joined the defense, Jaime fighting with a smile and a limp, Brienne with thunder in every strike. Jon fought too, but not like a king, like a wolf, silent, deadly, protecting, not leading. He moved through the smoke with Ghost at his side, cutting down attackers one by one. After an hour of brutal defense, they captured one of the rebels alive. A girl no older than Cedric, eyes glowing with Targaryen madness. You don't understand, she hissed as Jaime pressed a blade to her throat. Jon Snow is our king. He will rise, or we'll make him. Make him? Brienne said sharply. By killing his friends? The girl laughed, blood on her lips. Better them than him. Cedric stood over her, face twisted with anger. She's insane. They all are. No, Jon said quietly. They're desperate. That night, Cedric sat alone, sharpening his sword too fast, too hard. He was angry. Angry at the rebels, at Jon's silence, at himself. I thought training to protect a king would be about glory, he muttered. But all I see is death, lies, and madness. Brienne sat beside him, her voice calm. Because that's what power brings, Cedric. You think wearing the sword makes you a knight. It doesn't. It's the weight of protecting someone who never asked to be followed. Jaime joined them, grinning tiredly. And the fun part is if you do it right, no one thanks you for it. Cedric shook his head. Then why do it? Jon appeared behind them, his face pale in the torchlight. Because sometimes, even if the world's broken, you still stand for what's right. Even if it breaks you too. The next morning, Jon gave Cedric a choice. You were chosen to train for one king's guard, but no one told you who that king would be. You still want glory? Cedric nodded slowly. I want purpose. Jon handed him a scroll and pointed east. Then ride ahead to King's Landing. There's someone there who needs protecting more than me. A child bastard of House Velaryon. They want to kill him before he grows. Cedric blinked. I thought I was guarding a king. You are, Jon said. A king who hasn't been crowned yet. As Cedric rode out through the morning mist, Jaime turned to Jon. You just sent a half-trained boy into a den of snakes. No, Jon said, watching the boy vanish over the hills. I sent a wolf. Cedric rode hard for 3 days. His horse nearly collapsed beneath him, but he didn't stop. The scroll Jon had given him was sealed in wax, shaped like a direwolf's paw. He hadn't opened it, Jon told him, only to give it to the right person once he reached King's Landing. No other instructions, no details. Just that there was a child with Valyrian blood, and Cedric was the only one who could reach him in time. When he finally reached the capital, it was not the city he expected. King's Landing had changed. The streets were quieter, the towers scorched, and the people walked with eyes full of fear and caution. There was no king on the throne now, only a council of lords pretending to hold power. No one trusted anyone. Gold cloaks had become little more than paid thugs, and whispers of the dragon's shadow moved through alleyways and inns. Cedric knew instantly this city would swallow him if he didn't play it smart. He didn't wear armor, just a hood, a dagger, and the old sword Jaime had given him. Not the finest steel, Jaime had said, but it'll save your life more than once. He began asking about the child quietly, only in safe corners. But even a whisper of Valyrian blood drew unwanted attention. On his second night, he was followed through Flea Bottom. The shadows moved behind him, silent, hungry. Cedric turned a corner and ducked into an alley, sword drawn. 3 men came after him. One carried a hook in place of a hand. Another had yellow eyes and scars along his throat. The last wore a black cloak marked with a small red dragon. "You looking for someone, boy?" the one with the hook said, grinning. "We heard you're sniffing around where you shouldn't be." Cedric didn't answer. He struck first. The fight was fast and dirty. He slashed the hook man's leg, spun, and dodged a blade aimed for his neck. Blood sprayed the walls. Cedric stabbed one in the gut and kicked the third into the mud before escaping through the smoke-filled streets. He knew then this wasn't just about protecting a child. This was a game of bloodlines and secrets. Later that night, bleeding and limping, he collapsed inside a small bakery run by an old woman with silver hair. She took one look at him and locked the door behind him. "You're looking for the boy," she whispered. "He's not safe here." "None of us are." Cedric pulled out the scroll, unbroken. "Jon Snow sent me." The woman's eyes widened. "Then you need to see Meryn." She led him through a tunnel beneath the bakery, cold and damp. They walked for what felt like hours before reaching an old wine cellar deep beneath the ruined sept of Baelor. And there, guarded by 2 silent figures, stood a boy no older than 8. He had dark skin, silver-white hair, and pale purple eyes. His presence was like fire and ice all at once. Meryn Valyrian. He was the last living thread of 2 powerful houses. His mother, a forgotten cousin of the Targaryens. His father, a bastard of Driftmark. No claim to a throne, but enough blood in his veins to make the wrong people fear him. "I've been waiting for a wolf," the boy said quietly, staring at Cedric. Cedric knelt. "Then let's get you out of here." But the old woman shook her head. "You can't leave yet. The dragon's shadow has eyes everywhere. If you walk out now, you'll die before you reach the gates." Cedric gritted his teeth. "So we stay and wait to be hunted?" "No," the boy said. "We fight back." And for the first time, Cedric saw it not fear in the boy's face, but fire, a storm waiting to break. Not a scared child, but a king in the making. Cedric turned to the woman. "Then tell me everything. Who's hunting him? Who wants this boy dead so badly they'll burn half the city for it?" She hesitated, then whispered 2 words that froze Cedric to the bone. "Rhaenys' revenge." The name Rhaenys' revenge echoed in Cedric's mind long after the old woman said it. It wasn't just a name. It was a ghost one Cedric hadn't expected. "Rhaenys Targaryen died years ago," he muttered. "Killed by the Lannisters during the sack of King's Landing." The woman's voice turned sharp. "Her body died, but her name, her vengeance ... lives on." Rhaenys' revenge was not a person. It was a movement. A secret cult made of loyalists, assassins, and exiled nobles who believed the Targaryens were betrayed, murdered, and stolen from. And now, after years of hiding in the shadows, they were rising again with a single purpose: to wipe out any remaining claimants not loyal to their cause. Meryn Valerion was a threat to that cause. He wasn't their chosen heir. He wasn't born under their fire and blood doctrine. He represented peace, not power. His bloodline made him dangerous, but his spirit made him deadly to their plan. And Jon Snow? He was the symbol of their betrayal. He was the last dragon who turned on his own, the old woman said bitterly. So now they want him dead. And anyone he protects like this boy is marked. Cedric's fists clenched. Then we'll take the fight to them. You and who? The woman snapped. You're just one boy with a sword and a child to protect. Meryn stood, his voice eerily calm for his age. He's not alone. I have loyalists too. Not many, but enough to spark something. That night, in the cellar, Cedric met the handful of allies the boy had gathered over the years. A mute giant named Uruk, who once fought for Stannis. A former septa named Elenya, who was exiled for hiding children during the sack. 2 twins from Dorne, knife-wielding and wild-eyed, swearing loyalty to no one but the boy. They weren't many, but they were real. And they were ready to fight. The plan was simple but dangerous. They would fake Meryn's death using a burned body and an empty casket. Spread rumors of an ambush. Let the dragon's shadow believe they had succeeded. Then, while the city lowered its guard, Cedric and the others would escort Meryn out through the river tunnels and flee toward the Stormlands, where they could regroup and prepare for whatever war came next. But nothing in Westeros goes according to plan. The morning they set it all in motion, the first part worked perfectly. The body charred beyond recognition was dumped at the gates of the Red Keep. A note pinned to the chest read, "The bastard heir is dead. Long live the fire." The city relaxed. The spies disappeared. The gold cloaks looked away. But Cedric felt it in his bones something was wrong. And he was right. As they moved through the old sewers beneath the city, Meryn riding Uruk's back and the others flanking close, a sudden roar of flame erupted from behind them. Fire poured down the tunnel like a dragon's breath. Cedric threw Meryn to the side just in time as a wall of heat rushed past. "Ambush!" shouted Elenya. Dozens of figures poured from the shadows, cloaked in red and gold, their faces covered by dragon masks. Their leader stepped forward tall, slim, and terrifyingly calm. She removed her mask to reveal silver hair, sharp violet eyes, and a cruel smile. "Did you really think you could fool me?" she whispered. Cedric knew her face instantly from the stories. Serenia Targaryen, a bastard daughter of Rhaegar, forgotten, hidden, raised in Essos, and now leader of the cult. Rhaenys' revenge was her creation. "I'm not here to kill the boy," she said softly. "I'm here to offer him a choice." She stepped forward, her voice like honey laced with poison. "Join me, Meryn. Rule beside me. Become the flame the world fears." The boy stared at her silent. Then he looked at Cedric, and he said one word. "No." Serenia's smile faded. "Then burn." She snapped her fingers, and chaos exploded. Cedric didn't wait. He shoved Meryn behind him, drew his sword, and charged into the fire. The tunnel filled with screams, steel, and smoke. Cedric fought like a storm cutting, blocking, moving only to protect the boy. Uruk held the line with a roar that shook the walls, throwing enemies like dolls. Elenya chanted prayers with blood on her lips, cutting deep with her daggers. But they were outnumbered, surrounded, and fire was closing in. Just when all hope seemed lost, a massive rumble shook the tunnel. The wall behind them cracked open with a blast of smoke, and through it stepped Brienne of Tarth, sword in hand, fury in her eyes. She was not alone. Behind her, Jaime Lannister limped forward with a grin, and beside them, cloaked in black, stood Jon Snowghost at his side, eyes burning with something dark. Cedric grinned through blood. Took you long enough. Jon raised his sword. Let's finish what we started. The tunnel was fire and fury. Blades clashed. Screams echoed. Blood ran like rainwater down the stone. And in the middle of it all stood Jon Snow, sword drawn, his face calm, but his eyes, his eyes were death. Serenia Targaryen froze for a heartbeat. She had not expected him. You, she hissed, the betrayer, the kinslayer, the coward who murdered our queen. Jon didn't blink. She wasn't a queen. She was a tyrant with wings. Serenia's face twisted with rage. And what are you? A butcher in black? He stepped forward, long claw gleaming in the firelight. I'm the man who stops your madness before it spreads. And the chaos resumed. Brienne moved like a tempest her greatsword, cutting down the masked cultists 2 at a time, her armor scorched, but her steps unshaken. Jaime, slower but no less deadly, fought with a brutal grace, using every dirty trick learned from a lifetime of war. And Cedric? Cedric stayed close to Meryn, guarding the boy with a fury he didn't know he had. He was bleeding from his shoulder, his jaw was cracked, but his hands never stopped swinging. Meryn didn't hide. He didn't run. The boy picked up a blade too big for him and stood ready beside Cedric, refusing to be just another royal to be protected. I'm not made of glass, he shouted, stabbing a man in the thigh. I noticed, Cedric grunted, cutting the attacker down. But stay behind me anyway. Ulrich was the wall, roaring like a beast, smashing through the enemy lines with a butcher's axe. Elenya, her robes torn and soaked in blood, protected Meryn's back like a shadow. But Serenia was no ordinary enemy. She moved like fire, fast and wild, her twin daggers glowing with Valyrian steel edges. She carved through the fight, heading straight for Jon. Come on, bastard, she whispered. Let's see if you bleed like your aunt. Their duel was something from legend. Jon's style was silent and heavy, like the North itself. Serenia danced like a flame, laughing as she struck. Steel clashed, sparked, and slid. Longclaw met her twin blades again and again. Cedric wanted to help, but he had his own war to fight. 2 cultists came at him from both sides. He ducked under one, parried the other, and with a scream of fury, drove his sword through both at once. Meryn cried out, suddenly pushed back, cornered by a masked woman with a spear. No, Cedric roared. He dove, tackled the woman, and they rolled across the floor. The spear missed his throat by inches. Cedric stabbed her in the ribs once, twice, until she stopped moving. But he didn't get up. He felt something warm on his side. A knife. Another cultist had stabbed him from behind. Blade sunk deep into his ribs. Cedric gasped, staggering. Everything spun. Meryn caught him. No, stay with me. I'm not dying here, Cedric growled. Not yet. Meanwhile, Jon's fight with Serenia reached its peak. She slashed him across the arm, and he stumbled. She laughed, blood in her teeth. You're just a broken man with a heavy sword. Jon dropped Longclaw. Serenia grinned, raised her daggers, and Jon charged. He slammed into her, bare hands gripping her wrists. They struggled. She stabbed once missed. Again grazed his side. Then Jon grabbed one of her daggers, ripped it from her hand, and drove it into her gut. She gasped, mouth opening in shock. You can't stop the fire, she choked. Jon looked her dead in the eyes. Then I'll drown it in blood. He pulled the blade free. Serenia fell. The fight ended quickly after that. The rest of the cultists fled, leaderless and broken. Brienne helped Cedric to his feet, holding his weight. Jaime tended to Meryn, rushing blood from the boy's face. The tunnel was silent now, just the crackle of fire and the soft groans of the wounded. Jon stood over Serenia's body, breathing hard. Is it over? Meryn asked quietly. Jon didn't look back. No, but this war just lost its heart. Later, they emerged into the night. The sky above King's Landing was black, no stars. Smoke rose from the sewers. Cedric, pale and bleeding, looked at Jon. What now? Jon looked at Meryn. Now. We crowned the king no one wanted, the one they'll never expect. Meryn stared at them both. But I'm just a boy. Brienne placed a hand on his shoulder. So was every great man until the moment he wasn't. The road from King's Landing was soaked with blood and shadow. Cedric rode weakly, slumped in his saddle, his wound stitched by Olenna, but far from healed. Brienne stayed beside him, one hand always on her sword, eyes scanning the trees for danger. Meryn sat between Jon and Jaime, his face pale but unreadable. He hadn't spoken since they left the city behind. Not since he watched men die to protect him. Not since he saw Jon kill Serena without hesitation. The boy had crossed a line. He'd gone from hidden heir to marked target. There was no turning back. They rode south, toward the Stormlands, where Lord Davos Seaworth had promised shelter. Davos had once served Stannis, then Jon. He knew better than anyone what it meant to follow the right cause, even when the rest of the world called it treason. They reached an old, broken keep by the Sea ruin. Davos had quietly rebuilt for moments like this. Hidden, fortified, and loyal. Inside the great hall, lit by fire and guarded by trusted men, Jon gathered them all. Cedric sat, pale and stiff. Meryn stood in the center, hands shaking, trying to hide it. This war isn't done, Jon said. Serena was only one head of the dragon. Others will rise. Some already have. Jaime nodded. The Vale is stirring. The lords of the Reach are split. And across the narrow sea, gold is moving in strange directions. Brienne crossed her arms. They'll never accept Meryn as king. He's a bastard, young, and the throne no longer exists. Jon turned to Cedric. What do you say? Cedric looked at Meryn. He saw the boy who had stood in fire, picked up a blade, refused to kneel to madness. He saw the spark of something bigger than blood. I say, maybe he's not the king they want, Cedric's voice cracked. But maybe he's the one they deserve. Silence. Then Davos spoke from the shadows. Then you need more than loyalty. You need a name. Jon stepped forward. He dropped to one knee before the boy. Everyone froze. Even Jaime straightened. You were born Meryn Velaryon, Jon said softly. But blood alone doesn't make a king. He took a sword Blackfyre once wielded by Targaryens, recovered from the wreckage of the Red Keep. He held it before the boy. With my blood, I name you Meryn Waters no longer. From this day forward, you are Meryn's Storm Dragon heir to both storm and fire, not to rule with fear, but to lead with justice. Brienne fell to one knee. Davos did the same. Then Jaime, then Cedric, groaning through his pain. And the boy stood taller. Something shifted in him. Not a prince, not a pawn, but a king rising. Just then, a scout burst into the hall. There's movement from the east, riders, banners with 3 red heads, triple dragons. Jon's eyes narrowed. House Blackfyre, Cedric blinked. I thought they died out. Some roots go deep, Jaime said grimly. And this one's poisoned, Davos sighed. They won't let this go. Meryn's blood threatens them all. Jon turned to Cedric. Can you still stand? Cedric forced himself up. I didn't survive King's Landing just to die in bed. Jon smiled faintly. Good, then we ride at dawn. But before anyone could move, Meryn spoke. No, they all turned. I'm done running, he said. Let them come. Let them see who I am. I'll stand here. I'll fight for it, Cedric nodded slowly. Then I'll fight beside you. Meryn looked at Jon. Will you? Jon stared at him. And for a brief moment, he saw another face Daenerys standing in the ashes of a ruined city. A face full of hope, then fire, then loss. He nodded. I will. The torches in the hall burned brighter. And as the night deepened, war came riding on black horses from the east. Dawn broke red. The sky above the Stormlands burned like an open wound, and the sea screamed against the rocks below the keep. Riders emerged from the eastern hills, dozens of them, banners snapping in the wind, each one inked with three-headed dragons, twisted in black and crimson. House Blackfire had returned to Westeros, no longer in whispers, no longer hiding in exile. And they had one goal: take the boy, or burn the coast. Meryn stood on the battlements of the ruined keep, a sword in his hands, too large for his frame, but held with silent defiance. His armor was mismatched bits of old Targaryen steel, Stormlander leather, and a dark black cloak once worn by Jon Snow himself. He looked like a ghost of old kings, a storm waiting to be unleashed. "They expect us to surrender," Brienne said from beside him, watching the riders take formation. "No," Jon muttered. "They expect us to run." Cedric, wrapped in bandages, limped to the wall. "Then let's surprise them." Meryn turned to face the room his people, a boy of 8 summers. But when he spoke, his voice cut through the cold like steel. "I will not bend, not to dragons twisted by greed, not to false kings hiding behind names they don't deserve. If I die today, I die with my name on my terms." A hush fell. Even Davos blinked. Then Jaime laughed. "He gives better speeches than half the lords I've served." Brienne smiled. "Because he means every word." The keep was quiet for only a moment more. Then came the sound of horns, long, slow, threatening. The Blackfire army advanced. Jon walked through the courtyard, giving orders with the same calm he'd shown at Hardhome, at the wall, and on the battlefield outside Winterfell. Archers on the southern tower. "Brienne, hold the gate. Jaime, take the left flank." "Cedric." "I know," Cedric said, gripping his sword. "I stay close to the boy." Jon nodded. "And if I fall—" "You don't fall," Cedric interrupted. "Not today." The first wave hit like thunder. Blackfire soldiers charged with spears and siege ladders. Fire arrows streaked through the air. One slammed into the old gate, which began to smoke and crack. Brienne held the line, swinging with inhuman strength, cutting men down like wheat. Jaime fought with one hand and dirty tricks, knocking men from ladders with his golden hand, slicing tendons, stabbing through armor seams. He bled, but didn't slow. Cedric stayed beside Meryn on the inner wall, parrying blows from climbers, barking orders to archers, throwing rocks when he ran out of breath. Meryn, small but deadly, slashed one man's throat when he reached the wall. But then came the beast. A dragon, not a full-grown monster like Drogon, but a lean, young creature with wings like razors and black scales that shimmered red in the sun. The enemy had brought a dragon bound by chains and old blood spells. It landed in the courtyard with a shriek that shattered stone. Jon's face went pale. Brienne backed away slowly. "We don't have dragon glass. No scorpions. Nothing." Jaime grimaced. "So we die here, then?" But Jon didn't speak. He looked at Meryn, and the boy stepped forward. The dragon growled at him, smoke leaking from its nose. "Stop," Meryn said, voice trembling but clear. "I know you. You're not their monster." The dragon paused. Jon reached slowly for Lone Claw. "Meryn, get back." "No," the boy whispered. "I feel it. This dragon has Targaryen blood in it. Like me." The creature snarled, but didn't strike. Then Meryn did something no one expected. He dropped his sword, walked forward, hands out. The dragon lowered its head. Everyone froze. "Gods," Brienne muttered. He's bonding with it." The Blackfire screamed from beyond the walls. "Kill the beast. Kill the boy." Jon raised his blade. "Now!" he roared. They fought with fury. The dragon, now fully unleashed, breathed fire not on them, but on the enemy. Its chains shattered in one blast of heat. Screams tore through the hills as flames washed over the Blackfire ranks. The tide turned instantly. The enemy broke ranks, terrified of the boy riding death. Meryn climbed atop the dragon's back, awkward but determined. "Fall back," he shouted to the enemy. "Or burn." They ran. Within minutes, it was over. Ash rained from the sky. Cedric coughed blood, but grinned. Jaime collapsed, laughing. Brienne dropped her sword, exhausted. Jon watched the boy descend from the dragon's back, fire dancing in his silver hair. He had seen a queen rise with dragons before. That ended in ash. But this was something else. Not fire for revenge. Not fire for power, but fire for freedom. Jon knelt slowly. "Your Grace," the others followed. Cedric forced himself down, eyes locked with the boy's. "You're not a bastard anymore," he said, smiling through pain. "You're the storm they feared." Meryn looked across the smoking fields. His voice was low, steady. "I'm Meryn Stormdragon, and I will not rule through fire. But I will never fear it again." And far away, in corners of Westeros that still remembered fire and blood, a new name began to spread, one not born from crowns, but from survival. The king they never wanted. The boy who rode the flame. The last hope of a broken realm.